Hi,
Hi.
I'm Kathy. I'm waiting for the rest of the planning board to come online. Gordon?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, Kathleen. This is Scott. I don't know if my camera is working or not. It said it wasn't for some reason.
Hi, Scott. I don't see it. I see your name.
No.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
There.
I can hear you. Hi, Hunley.
Hi, Kathleen. Hi, Scott. Up here.
How you doing?
In the, well, somewhere down there, it'll say gallery view.
I don't see it.
I can see you, Hunley.
I'm trying to get gallery view.
Okay.
No, don't scroll.
No?
Just tap.
Oh, right there. Oh, there we go.
So hopefully you're good. Sometimes you need to.
Hi, George.
Hi, Kathleen. Hi, everybody. I'm just coaching.
That's right. I need all the help I can get to.
No. This is just basics.
And before I forget, Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you. You too. Hopefully you're all set.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hello. Andrew, for the minutes, could I have your last name, please?
Oh, sure. It's Andrew Dean, D-E-A-N.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm with Cooper Cargill Champ.
Bill, it looks like the only one we're missing right now is Sarah.
Okay. Do we have to give her the extra few minutes to get in
Yes.
the building?
Gordon, if I may ask, what is your last name, please? Or your first name? I'm not sure if Gordon is your first name or last name.
Gordon is the first name.
Okay.
Last name is Powers, P-O-W-E-R-S.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Why don't we get this thing started?
Sounds good.
All right. Call meeting to order. There are going to be two parts of the meeting. We have a regular meeting and we have a public hearing this evening. We'll start with the regular meeting, and we will then proceed to the public hearing and then return back to the regular meeting again. So starting out with the regular meeting, to take a look to see who's here for purposes of voting members. I see Sarah's coming on board.
Yep.
So I think we are all present.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, Huntley, at least for this part, you're not voting. However, hang on, because you'll have your opportunity. David, please.
Okay, so the next one, review and approve the minutes from the previous meeting in November.
No comments like that. Come on.
I
Any
move
comments?
that we accept them.
A second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. And by the way, instead of calling each vote individually, basically find out if there is any nays, we will then ask for individual voting. Otherwise, not. So that was unanimous.
Mhm.
Please carry on, David.
Okay, so the next one is public comments for the board, not on the agenda for the evening.
This is your opportunity. If there's anybody who'd like to speak now, if it's on the agenda, we'll allow you to talk during the time when we're on that particular agenda item. Otherwise, but if there's something you have that's new or that's not on the agenda, there's time to speak up, please. Hearing none, let's move on,
Okay.
David.
Okay, when do you want to talk about that Saco?
We have new business,
Okay.
maybe at the end of the day.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, the first thing on the agenda is Gloria and Tom Hutchings regarding some discussion regarding a lot line adjustment. I will share my screen on the issues, and I do see that Tom has joined the meeting. Did I not see that correctly?
No, you did see it. I'm here.
Okay, okay.
Okay, should be just a quick topic. So I had two maps I provided. One is the first one here you're looking at is the lot that's actually across from Maloon Road as it enters Carter Notch Road. And we have that lot under a purchase and sales agreement. And it's marked there with the red location of the house and driveway that we just penciled in. What we were hoping to do is understand whether we were going to create any issues if we were to purchase the small finger of land next to that, which is better to be described by the next.
Okay, I will show the next one. Take that one out. I will show the next one.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw the first lot, and it was number 42. The lot to the north of that is actually not lot 41. Lot 41 is that little tiny piece next to Carter Notch Road. But the land we were talking about is the land that's just to the north. If we were to combine lot 42 with that additional piece of land, lot 42 is grandfathered for as a buildable lot, providing that obviously with the septic design and driveway permit and so forth. But if we were to purchase this other piece of land, we wanted to make sure that that would not in any way, that transaction or the lot line adjustment, whether that would not have any sort of a non-conforming issue once we did that. It still falls under just about a little bit under 1 acre if we combine the two lots.
Comments?
I don't see that. No, sorry. But
I was just going to say it certainly doesn't make the situation any worse. Is there any opportunity to also purchase that tiny little piece that is sort of the most non-conforming of it all as part of the whole thing?
Well, we'd like to. We've talked with the lot owners of that property, but it didn't sound like they were interested in selling that because it goes with lot 40 also.
Oh, okay, got it. All right.
Are there any buildings on any of these lots?
On not on 40 or the little finger that we're talking about. No, there are none.
Is there something, a building then on 42?
I'm sorry, I misspoke. There's no building on 42. That's the one that we're in the process of buying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no building on the 41 either. There is a building on 40.
And you say that the people who own 40 also own 41. So that's all.
Correct.
They may need that much for their frontage. Though I can't really.
Well, they've already, their lots are lots of record, so they,
right.
It's not at this point a frontage issue. They couldn't subdivide anyhow, even if they combined the lots. So the proper, what's the property to the west that you'd be getting the land from?
That's part of the large parcel that's owned by Bob and Robin.
Okay.
R&R.
But I just want to make sure I'm reading the map correctly. So that's the land you'd be adding to 42 is coming from, and it doesn't show the lot number, but of that larger piece to the west.
That's correct. There's that odd little finger that just comes out to that small lot 41. Yep.
Right. Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Well, what you'd have to do first is to do a lot line adjustment. It would have to be from the owner of record of lot 42 and lot, I believe this big lot is lot 45. Though the owners of those two lots would have to do a boundary line adjustment.
Mhm.
And if that's done before you buy it, would buy 42, then it would have to be done by the present owners. And if you were to buy it and then have an agreement with the owners of lot 45, then you would do a boundary line adjustment between them, between you and them. Which looks to me like that would, at this point, I don't see any issues in doing that.
Okay.
And as far as you say, 42 does not have anything built on it now?
That's correct.
So you would, to build on it then, you would have to get the approval for, as you said, a septic system, your water source, and also driveway permit. And,
Right.
and I don't know what the regulations would be on driveway permit, since you've got so many little lots along that road already, as to whether you'd be allowed to have another one. But Carter Notch Road at that point is not a high traffic road. Except when the only skiing in town is at Prospect Farm.
And would you be purchasing that piece from lot 45? Or are
Yes.
they?
The lot, the little finger of land, Scott? Yes.
Yes, yeah. 'Cause I'm not sure where does boundary line adjustment end and subdivision begin? What defines, because if they're carving off a piece and selling it to you, that sounds like subdivision to me.
No, if it's subdivision, would be creating a new lot. All this is doing is changing the boundary line.
Yeah,
between
you're
two
right. I'm
lots.
sorry, you're right. Yeah,
And
you're right.
because
Yeah.
42 would be gaining something from 45, then stands to reason that there would be money exchange.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's because they're contiguous that that
Right.
can be done. Okay. Sorry, I should have seen that. Yeah. So to me, it's it only makes lot 42 more likely to be conforming to our septic requirements, et cetera. So I don't think the only way you could possibly say it makes it more non-conforming is it's now a larger lot with non-conforming frontage. But I guess I don't believe that really fits the increase in non-conformity that we look at.
It may make it possible as far as gaining more soils for septic approval.
Right. I mean, I just don't see that it makes the situation any worse and possibly makes it better. I mean, it seems like a fairly straightforward. But given this is sort of a review, we really can't get too far into the details, and nothing we say tonight is would be considered binding.
Okay.
Usually when we have somebody who comes in for conceptual or just is thinking of something, they're really wanting to know how should they proceed to do what they're wanting to do. And I think that's what we have provided for them.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Sure.
And Tom, did we answer your questions?
Yes, our main concern was by combining those two lots, would we create a non-conforming? And that sounds like, if anything, it would improve the property. So I realize it's non-binding what we discussed, but it gives me a little confidence to move forward with in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And this is when we are moving to the public hearing regarding the subdivision.
Okay, so public hearing. I need to announce that we are starting the public hearing and determination of voting members. The members are all present and will be voting members. I need to recuse myself. I'm a board member of the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, and I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to be a part of this public hearing as a member of the planning board. And so I'm recusing myself, and as a result of that, I'm going to turn the public hearing over to Scott Badger and let him make the determination of the voting members.
Okay. So who would be, is it Huntley that would be the next one to fill your place, Bill?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be, Huntley would be filling your place, I guess. And actually, David, if you want to sort of read off the, who the members would be that would be voting, the full members plus Huntley.
Sure.
Before we do that, I think I need to disclose my husband is also on the ski touring board, but we have not discussed this application. But if anybody feels that just because of the relationship that I should be recused, I'll go by that.
Sarah, I believe in your integrity. I have no problem with you voting or expressing views.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Sarah, just on the recusal, usually according to the requirement for recusal, it's a determination based on the individual's belief as to whether or not they have a conflict of interest, and whether or not they can look at it in an impartial way, or if it were to be perceived as not being impartial. And that's generally on you to make that decision. For me, because I am definitely on the board, I don't see how I can not recuse myself.
Pardon me, members of the board. I have a general question. It's probably, if I could ask it now. Scott Badger, are you related to Badger Real Estate, the seller of the lot?
Dick Badger was my dad. I have no direct.
I don't know if you have an interest where you might want to recuse yourself, but just thought I'd bring it up.
And that determination is based on the individual on the planning board, not based on anybody else's perception. And it's your choice, and that is how it works. So I've recused myself. Anybody else who chooses to may, but otherwise proceed. And I'm going to stand down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and to that point, I don't believe that my somewhat now extended relationship to Badger Realty, would bear on, any considerations tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, you asked me to name off the list of people. That would be Huntley.
Yes, please.
That would be Huntley Allen, Kathleen, Sarah. I see Chris is on, but I don't see video, but Chris is there. Scott, Dick, and myself.
Thanks.
I'm trying
And
to
do
get
we
video.
have-
I can't seem to get it.
Yeah, I had to go into my settings to switch something in privacy to get mine to work, so try that. Do we have someone presenting the subdivision tonight?
That would be me, Seth Brunel from HEB Engineers.
Hey, Seth, sorry, I'm on my phone, so I don't see much of a gallery, so I only see about 2 people at a time and didn't realize you're there. So I guess we're ready if you want to go ahead, and then we'll take comments after, you know, we take a look at what you have to show us.
Okay. Well, thank you all for having us this evening. I've done plenty of things on Zoom over this past year, but this is my first planning board meeting over Zoom, and it sounds like you guys I've heard you guys have been doing a good job, and it's been working well, so kudos for that. And I'll do my best to do a good job as well. We are here to subdivide a lot that's owned by Jackson Ski Touring Foundation. The entire lot consists of, oops, let me get my notes on the other screen here. The entire lot consists of 74.5 acres. Most of the land is on the south side of the Ellis River and contains Jackson's Ellis River ski trails along with other snowshoe trails. In 2017, Jackson consummated a conservation easement that protected forever most of the land on this parcel, along with land on their other parcel, as part of the NRCS Wetlands Reserve Program. At that time, there was 5.5 acres on the north side of the river that was excluded from the conservation easement to potentially sell as a house lot. So the purpose of this application is to formally divide that parcel of land into a separate lot. So the remaining land all around this parcel is already put into a conservation easement and is protected forever from any sort of development. This was kind of left out for this purpose. That's about.
This is a lot on the south side of 16, correct?
We are on the south side of 16, yes, the north side of the Ellis River. Yep.
Okay, maybe I heard you say, I thought you said 16, and I was looking to the north.
I very well may have said 16. It's on the south side.
You may have said, sorry, go on.
The lot has some frontage on Route 16 that satisfies the minimum frontage. It does not have frontage on the Ellis River itself. That it has been separated from the river on purpose, and that land has been put into the conservation easement. So that's kind of my overview on the general purpose here. I don't know if you would like to move to the second sheet to focus on the lot itself. That might be helpful.
Sure.
This shows.
You are seeing this, right? Everybody's seeing this? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
This sheet kind of zooms in on the 5.5 acre lot and shows the building site and the topography and most of the other details. We had wetlands and site-specific soils delineated by Greg Howard, and so we've done the lot density calculation on a portion of the lot. There's a shading dashed line in there that just shows the portion that we did the density computation on, basically to prove that there is a buildable lot there, and have cited a test pit in the building site down near the south end of the property, away from some of the wetlands, and it would be, sort of overlooking the river, but again, there's a separation there between the river and what can be developed on purpose. So the main thing we're probably going to spend the most time here talking about is the proposed access to the building site that we've configured is that it's utilizing a right-of-way over the neighboring lot, which is tax lot R12-191. The owner is the Powers Family Trust. And that's utilizing a right-of-way that was designated essentially for a driveway purpose to cross that land over. There's an existing woods road that goes down through both parcels. So our plan is to use that right-of-way that was reserved that way. So,
and is access not possible off of 16?
Well,
directly into the property.
If you can see the Route 16 frontage there. There is a very steep banking, and there would be significant wetland crossing to gain access. Otherwise, right there where the hand is. So, I don't know if I would say it's not possible, but it would not be what would be considered a minimum wetland impact.
Okay.
Do so.
I drove out this evening, but unfortunately it was already dark by the time I got home, so I really wasn't able to get a good look at it. But now that I zoom in, I do see the contour lines pretty steep.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
There's quite a banking there. So, the main point I'm here to make as well. We've had some conversations with Gordon Powers, who's the trustee of the Powers Trust, and is in this meeting here, and may speak as well. But the point we want to make is that we are working together to iron out the details of that right of way and the details of how the driveway will work. Is currently working to do so, and has been designing. Essentially, it's a shared driveway that would provide access to both of the lots, that to a driveway that meets both New Hampshire Department of Transportation standards and the Town of Jackson driveway standards. The goal is to follow this woods road that's already out there.
Okay. Sarah.
Yes.
Before we get into a discussion, and as Seth indicated, probably about that right-of-way and access, should we go through the application checklist, et cetera, first, or should we do the discussion first?
I think we might also do the checklist. We were doing a slightly different procedure in that the checklist was going to be checked ahead of time by either members of the board or people on the selectment staff. And I don't know whether that's been done yet or not. Bill, can you help us on that?
Well, I did go in and look. I looked over the documents. I guess I did not realize that I was responsible for going through the checklist at that time. So, but it may be that when I talked to Julie, she thought everything was in order and didn't really even feel that I needed to go take a look at the physical documents. So, Dave, do you have the folder in hand?
I do, but I don't have an electronic version of it. I do have electronic. Do you want me to pull it up? I could pull up electronic version.
Well, I guess, is there anything on the checklist that would indicate that, say, one of the Julies went through it and made sure that everything was in order?
There's no indication on here, but typically she would point out on here if there was something missing and point it out to us before we got there.
Okay. Just as a matter of procedure, Bill, do you have anything to say about how we should proceed in terms of the checklist and application?
I don't see an issue with you moving forward. Do
you know whether Julie went through the checklist prior to the meeting?
I think I'm going to be saying exactly what David said, which is that yes, they do go through the checklist. If there's anything that is unusual, it's usually pointed out.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was not. Right.
Okay. I guess what I would like to do, just, I feel like I should have gone through it when I was there, given that we have no assurance. I'd like to, if there's any approval tonight, I'd like to make it I'd like to propose that we make a conditional on, assuring that the checklist has been reviewed. That, or we could go through the checklist tonight, but I'd, prefer not to take up that time if we don't need to.
There are
There
are a couple of specific items that I know, we haven't submitted a Mylar, for instance, so that would be one.
Right.
Right.
So there are
And that's typical.
checklist items that have neat conditions. One last point I wish to make before we turn it over to additional questions is that we've agreed with Mr. Powers and his counsel that I believe we have met the requirements for a minor subdivision at this time. However, we've agreed that we will not seek a final approval until we've spent some more time ironing out the details of the driveway. And I don't know whether that's the purview of the board or not. We would. Okay. Well, we are seeking a conditional approval, subject to basically a sign off by Mr. Powers that we've come to an agreement on the right of way, and we have.
Okay.
That.
All right. So I guess, is there a motion to accept the application?
I don't see any footage on the road.
Well, first we need to accept the application. Then we can discuss, go discuss the application. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept it, and then we can move forward.
I motion to accept it.
I second it.
Okay.
I would say they make it a conditional acceptance with a check to make sure that everything is complete according to the checklist.
Okay.
We're assuming
wouldn't we go through the checklist after we accept the application, or do we accept the application after going through the checklist?
I thought we went through the checklist to make sure that it was, all the information was there, and then we accepted it, and then we approved it.
Okay, so we'll accept. Is the motion to accept the application with the condition that we assure that the checklist has been reviewed and everything complete?
Okay, I read a letter just before the meeting, I don't know, late this afternoon, from a lawyer, Eckberg, that
right. We can get into that discussion, Dick, after we accept the application. But I think we need to accept the application first, and then we can get into a discussion before we vote on it.
I don't see how we accept the application if all the information isn't there for the checklist.
We did it.
Well, I believe that we believe that the checklist has been checked and that everything is there. The question is simply whether that actually has occurred. When I looked through the application, sort of on a broad view, it looked like everything was there. So I guess I'm proposing that we accept the application so that we can discuss it. But as Sarah said, that acceptance is conditional, which seems a weird way to do it. I'm not sure that's really the way. I'm sorry, this is getting more confusing probably than it should be.
We have done it that way in the past, Scott, where it was conditional.
Which way?
Conditional, as long as the checklist is verified that it's been completed.
Okay. All right. So
we've done that. We've done that at previous meetings.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to accept the checklist conditional on to accept the application conditional on the checklist having been filled?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second on the table.
All right, so any discussion on the acceptance of the application? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Pardon me, would this also include the condition that was mentioned earlier by Seth over the proposed driveway?
No, that would come into the approval of the application, not the acceptance of the application.
Thank you. Pardon my ignorance.
Okay, so I believe now we can get into a discussion of the application. I do want to say up front, though, that Jackson does not have site plan review. And so when we review a subdivision application, we're really looking at, as I understand it, frontage. We're looking at the zoning that it fulfills our zoning ordinance. That would be frontage, septic, and setbacks, and that the application requirements are also fulfilled. And one of those requirements is that any easements or deed restrictions be noted on the plat. So just that's sort of a broad view of how we handle subdivision applications. Sarah, it's already come up as to whether, the discussion of the easement and use of it, but does access to a property, so long as it has frontage, is that our concern?
Well, it may become our concern in that an abutter has brought it up as an issue, and that perhaps it would come up for discussion in that way.
Right, but is it something that we can consider as, vote to accept or deny the application?
I don't think it's come up before.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it hasn't come up in my memory either.
Because this is, it's an existing easement, and it's
right.
So technically, I don't think it is up to us to decide whether it's, we just have to take, if it's an existing easement, then we look at the easement, the way it's worded and what it allows. And if that is a problem with the any other of the aspects of the subdivision, as far as meeting our ordinance, then it would come in on, that's when the easement would come into play. But
right.
If it doesn't cause any disruption as far as the subdivision meeting the requirements of the zoning ordinance and any other ordinances that apply, then I think what we would be doing is allowing the discussion because of the concerns of an abutter,
right?
Which
yep.
we usually listen to
yep.
and try to accommodate.
And one of the requirements of the application is that, again, all easements be sufficiently and accurately recorded on the plat. So that would be another point to this.
Right.
Okay. So, Mr. Powers, if you're welcome to speak at this point, if you'd like.
Yeah. First, I'd like to thank the board for hearing the comments tonight. By way of introduction, Seth, if you could leave that screenshot up you have of the property. By way of introduction, I live in East Kingston, New Hampshire, which is down on the seacoast. I have a second home up here in North Conway. That property in Jackson, which is approximately 5.5 acres. And I bought that property about 15 years ago from Jackson Ski Touring. I've been a member of Jackson Ski Touring for 30 plus years, and always appreciated the way Tom Perkins ran the joint. And I bought this land from them at a point when they were trying to raise money for various programs. I bought it at a premium. I granted certain easements over the land when I bought it. And frankly, I became aware of the subdivision plans when I came across these for sale signs across my property, which kind of surprised me. No, Mr. Terry's still on the call, and I've always been a very good member of the foundation and a good partner with them. So I was surprised I hadn't heard anything directly from them. So I started looking into it, and in fact, I had to go get an attorney to get additional information. I know he's been in contact with Mr. Dean, who's also on the call. Without going into too much more detail on that, Mr. Terry, I appreciate the fact that you recused yourself. No ill will against the board of Jackson Ski Touring. I've always loved the place, but I think they took a very lousy approach in putting out this plan and not contacting me as a major impacted landowner. As you can see in Zest, and by the way, just Zeth Burnell, thank you very much. You've been a great source of information. Unfortunately, it's all just getting to me now, what you're proposing. So I've not really had time as an abutter or a major landowner here to review what you give me, and I know you understand that. As you can see, if you're looking at Zest's layout of the land, probably 90% of the proposed road they want to build crosses my property. And the Delavallas who are on the call, they are the property owners right next to my property. They can attest that road probably is no more than 8 foot wide at the widest point now. It's going to be expanded to 12. It's going to include cutting down of trees, widening. It drops off very severely down in one section there before you enter the new lot. That's going to require fill. There's quite a few things going into this that I've not really had sufficient time to digest. And, I have a number of concerns also regarding liability, snow removal, road maintenance, things of that nature that are certainly not the planning board's concern, but would be of concern to the new owner of the property. And I'll put that aside for now. I know Dean's on, but I don't want to take too many shots at the board of directors of Jackson Ski Touring without them being on the call. If the planning committee would allow me, though, I'd like to read the letter that my attorney wrote today, because it kind of sums up our concerns. Is that okay?
Has everyone on the board seen the letter already?
It's
Yes.
I can tell you,
I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a town of Jackson, planning board, Jackson Ski Touring, Zeth Burnell, Mr. Dean, the attorney from Cooper, Cargill, and Chant, and Kevin Calori of Badger Real Estate. And I'll go through it quickly if you don't mind.
Well, it's just I've read through it myself, and it sort of reiterates your concerns that you've already expressed.
Right.
I guess what we're looking for, as Sarah, already described, how does this easement or use of this easement impact the requirements, the subdivision requirements?
And, that's beyond my pay grade, but I would think that part of the overall project would be how you access that new lot. So,
right, but as I said, we don't have site plan review in Jackson, and so it really is not our place to review how a subdivision is going to be developed. It's really a matter of whether the subdivision itself meets our requirements or not.
So then would the application for the driveway construction be a separate one before the board?
Yes, that's a building permit. That would come before the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. And so I guess all my reservations really had to do with that piece of it.
Right. I mean, my personal feeling is that, you know, it would be very, it seems like it would be advantageous to the touring center to come to some agreement with you, because, you know, frankly, selling that piece of land, if the new owner knows that they're going to, you know, be in an adversarial situation with, you know, their abutters, you know, is not going to help certainly sell the property. And so it would be,
Mr. Badger,
I think, advantageous at the touring center to work with you on this.
Yeah, I couldn't.
But that's a personal.
And in fact, we're trying to discern who the buyer is so that we can contact them and just go over some of my concerns, not in a hostile manner. So.
Yeah. Does anyone else on the board see where this easement or use of this easement would, how that would impact a subdivision application?
No.
If I may say one more thing.
Sure.
I wasn't quite sure how much the board would view this as the purview of the application, but I sort of see the direction this is going. And Gordon, one thing that may allay some of your fears here is part of getting the driveway actually permitted is going to be a driveway permit from New Hampshire DOT, because Route 16 is a state road. And because that driveway is on your property, we will need ultimately you to sign that application.
Right. And yeah, Seth, again, I've appreciated working with you over the past couple of days. And, you know, as long as there's something for me to hold on to when this approval goes through that says, hey, I still have that right to say yay or nay on what goes across my land.
And Andy Dean is on this call as well and can speak up to that. But I know that is one permit. You know, there are I feel plenty of things we still need to cooperate on, even if ultimately if the board ultimately approves this subdivision tonight, there's still plenty of things we need to cooperate on. And I feel, Jackson feels that we still want to work together and make sure it happens amicably anyway.
Yeah, and this is Andy. I can weigh in, and I appreciate the board understanding, the scope of what the approval is for subdivision, and I think it's been met. And I know I've talked to the Jackson Ski Touring, and even though, I mean, this is a deeded easement that's been deeded since 2006 for access and utilities to that lot. But we've told Gordon, and I'm fully confident that we're going to be able to work something out to deal with the concerns that Gordon has about maintenance and liability and snow plowing and things like that. His attorney, Dick Eckberg, actually contacted me. We've been trading phone calls and haven't been able to connect, but I think he and I have a similar approach to things, which is, it's going to be best for both property owners to maybe develop, this easement a little further, and that way there's an understanding of who has what rights and obligations, because it's going to prevent an issue, in the future. And as a real estate attorney, I can certainly appreciate that. And so we're absolutely willing to work with Gordon so we can come to an agreement on that on a go-forward basis.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
Okay. So how, I mean, at the beginning of this, it sounded like a conditional approval was being sought based on an agreement between the parties. That's I've never seen a conditional approval like that. So I'm looking to the rest of the board. Do we, would we do it that way? Would we simply approve the application? do the parties want to retract the application until there's that agreement in place? How do we proceed from here?
Scott, is Chris. If you've read Attorney Ekberg's letter, it just seems to me that there's a lot to go on behind the scene for anything actually to get done here. Wouldn't it make sense for that to happen? I mean, I'm sure we could do a conditional approval, but I don't know why we're continuing to discuss something that the parties in question have not come to a head about. It just seems to me that we're going around and round, and we shouldn't be. We don't need to. Go ahead.
It's because what's being discussed, as I understand it, really does not play into our consideration of this application.
That's my understanding too. This is Andy. That's my understanding.
When I looked at the plat, it referenced the easement with the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, so I believe it is noted on the plat as required. So, I mean, frankly, I don't see anything obstructing our going through with this application tonight, unless the parties involved want to retract it and, bring it back before the board once there is agreement. But that's really, I don't think that's between the parties involved, not, that's not something that we would instruct as the planning board.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And this is Andy. I don't know that we need to retract it because, as Seth mentioned, that there's going to be other development points where we're going to need cooperation with Gordon. And so, I mean, at the Board of Selectmen for the building permit, with the DOT for the driveway permit. So there's other avenues in the future where there's opportunities for the parties to reach an agreement. And I don't think we need to do that tonight or table the subdivision approval tonight for that to happen.
Right. And Andy, so you're representing the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation tonight?
I am, yes.
Okay. Do we have any other commentary before we take a vote?
Is this the time for public comment?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, hello, my name is Scott Barringer. I'm surprised that, well, first of all, could Seth elaborate a little bit more on the property? I mean, it's hard to see. It looks like it's pretty steeply sloped. The house is going to be very close to Ellis. Is that going to meet septic setback restrictions? I mean, this seems like you're jamming a house down into close to the river, but not on the river. And the terrain is large, a lot of wetlands. It looks steep to me. It's going to be hard to access. We get a lot of trees you're going to have to cut down. You're cutting through someone's property who doesn't want this to happen. I just don't know why the board is considering this at this stage with so many hurdles that we already know about.
Yeah. But again, those types of hurdles, really, we don't do site plan review in Jackson. And so what qualifies for a subdivision is fairly straightforward. It really doesn't meet the frontage requirements. Some of what you just mentioned might play into septic requirements, steep slope and et cetera. And but I think Seth has already indicated that they show the calculations on the plat to.
Seth seems quite hesitant, and on the proposal. I mean, he doesn't even seem like an advocate. This is my first exposure to it. Look at the plot. We've tried to jam this house in down at the bottom, which is going to be very hard to access. I'd love to hear about the septic. I'd love to hear the setback to the Ellis. We didn't hear any of that detail from Seth earlier.
I can answer that. I guess, well, don't mistake my wanting to work with the neighbor as not confident of the regulations. There are certain septic setbacks from steep slopes and things. There is a building area there that is flat enough for construction, and I've been there and I've seen it, and there is a nice spot there. It does It does meet setbacks from the Ellis River. It's not going to be like the I don't know if you've been on the Ellis River Trail, the house just upstream where they took every single tree out down to the river, probably in violation of DES shoreline rules. You know, this isn't that case at all, because there actually is a true buffer where land next to the river is in conservation. This will not be another house on a hill that's in perfect view of the river and a wide open experience like that.
Does this show, or do you have something that shows the permanent conservation easement of 128?
It's on the first sheet of the plan set, shows the entire property. The property's, again, it's 75 acres, and there's another lot downstream that Jackson Ski Touring also owns. So the conservation easement itself is over 150 acres that protects all of the ski trails that cross through those two properties. And again, it was done as part of the NRCS Wetlands Reserve Easement Program.
So does this abut that conservation easement? Or?
It does abut the conservation easement. It was this parcel that we are subdividing was excluded from the easement. Basically, the rest of this lot was put into the easement. So the new subdivision line is already an easement boundary for the conservation easement. And now we're making it a property line.
Okay, any other comments?
Hey, this is Jessica Della Valle. I just want to clarify some of my understandings. We tried to click on the link to look at the application, but it's a dead link. So, and this is my first planning meeting, so forgive my ignorance, but I'm just trying to understand, what is the question you are meant to answer tonight? Is it simply you've reviewed a checklist and everything's in order, and this request for a subdivision meets certain guidelines that you've already decided are in order? Because part of what I'm confused about is it seems like there's a cloudy easement issue, there's this access issue, and I guess I'm wondering what is the push to approve it tonight when it really does seem like there are a lot of things that might affect whether or not that checklist is actually really checked.
Well, the push to approve it is that the application has been brought before the board, so we have to consider it. As far as easements and access are concerned, the only thing that comes into our purview is whether any easements or deed restrictions are noted on the plat. Again, in Jackson, a subdivision requires a certain amount of frontage, sufficient land to provide for our septic requirements, and also that setbacks are shown and it falls within setbacks. And I can see that there's a setback indicated off the Ellis River. And so issues with development of the property really do not come into play when the planning board is considering a subdivision application. And so if you need to proceed with this application and vote on it, and if it fulfills all the application requirements and our subdivision requirements, then there's no reason why we would not approve this application.
And what are the downsides to not approving it tonight, to postponing it till I assume this is a monthly approval process, so that
I don't feel that the planning board has any nothing has been presented to us that would necessitate delaying a vote on it. Again, the issues that have come up are really not part of a subdivision consideration. And so, the decision to delay anything to work out some of these issues That's not a decision the planning board can instruct. That's a decision between, the property owners. And if
Scott, it's Chris. I understand what you're saying, and I would make a motion that we go ahead and accept the question at hand. I suggest we accept it and obviously put off some of those other details to some other time.
I guess I'm not sure I understand what your motion is, Chris.
Well, you said that these other details are sort of irrelevant to us accepting the application, and I finally understand that, and so I suggest that we accept the application at this point.
We've already accepted the application. When you say accept, you mean approve the application?
Well, what needs to be done that we can do tonight, obviously other stuff needs to be done at a later time, but that's not that's not what we're involved with this evening. And
so you're making to approve this application, is that correct?
I believe that's what you're suggesting that we do, and if that's what you're saying.
You said the word accept, and that's a different thing than approval. We've already accepted the application into discussion. And so we're at the point now, if there's no further discussion, to take a motion to approve the application and then vote on that motion if it's seconded.
Scott, may I be recognized, please?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
And I need to be recognized as a member of the public, not as a board member. And the only reason I asked to be recognized is that Mr. Powers did mention that perhaps members of the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation board were derelict in talking with him. And I have to say, I have no knowledge of what communications were made. And to the extent that we did not make a contact with you earlier, I guess I'd have to apologize that we did not. And I do so for myself, certainly. And I'm sure that would be the same case for the board. The intention of trying to do something, usually when something doesn't happen, it's because of oversight, and someone should have contacted you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Terry. It still seems to me that this is being hustled through awful quick.
Yeah, can
I read comments there? I'd probably said enough.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. And Scott, I apologize for having to throw this up at you to handle, but I think you're doing a great job. Okay,
yeah. Again, can I reiterate something that Jessica said earlier, which was the link that was out there for us to look for to be better educated on this prior to the call led to nowhere. So,
and I apologize for that.
So this is, I mean, from what you're hearing, nothing but resistance. You have neighbors on both sides who are opposed, and I'm surprised. It seems to me like there's some initiative that the board has to get this thing through in a hurry that I don't understand. And it's beyond just the fact that this is all I'm supposed to do. My job is this. The board's supposed to be receptive to the community and to the neighbors on either side, both of whom are expressed concern or at least ask for more time. I don't know why the board can't do the same.
I simply don't believe we have the authority to delay this application based on the concerns that have been raised. Sarah, do you have any comment on that?
Have you provided enough time for people to review the materials?
No.
The materials are on the town website.
No, they're
just
not.
under.
They were not on the link that we were told to follow to get to them. It's a dead end.
Mr. Bellinger, there was a general layout out there. There was nothing about the designs for the road going into that property. That just became available to me thanks to Zeth 2 days ago. So I've not really had time to review it, nor much else that's going into this project.
So this is Andy Dean. My only
It
comment.
feels like there's a jam job going on here. I don't know who's
Yeah, I know.
spearheading it.
It really is.
So
No, there's no jam job. First of all, please ask that I recognize you before talking. There's no jam job going on here. An application has come before us. We've gone through our regular procedure. As I said, concerns have been raised. That's what the public hearing is for. Those concerns, as I see it, don't impact how we proceed with the application. I think it would be, we would not be doing our duty if we delay an application for reasons that are not something that would cause us to, to deny the application, I guess. So, Chris, you've made a motion to accept the application. Is that, again, I want to make sure that that's correct.
Scott, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So does the board have some responsibility to provide a level of information for the community to study and therefore to be able to raise the proper concerns?
Generally speaking, we see this information ourselves at the meeting. I don't know if Dave or Sarah, if you have any, if you have an answer to that question as to, what information and how much time prior to the meeting information needs to be available to the public.
Yeah, the website was up. Unfortunately, it was when we received it, it came in at the same time the week of Thanksgiving, which is when we had to get it all out by that Wednesday. I apologize if the link did not work. However, if you did go to the Jackson website, to the planning board section of the website, you would have found the information just going to the Jackson's website. The link itself just bypasses a lot of the folders within that. But the information was, and you're seeing the information that we had, the application and these two drawings. That's all we have. We don't have any detailed information of anything more than what you're seeing here.
Scott, this is Kathleen. May I make a comment, please?
Sure.
Okay, I really think that with what we're hearing tonight, that there's no reason why this needs to be pushed through tonight. I think we got to have a better handle on the abutters and how they feel about it. And the process has not really been clearly, presented as far as people's feelings and thoughts and everything else. And there's no reason why we have to put it through tonight. It can be done next month when things have cleared up a little bit, and Mr. Powers has a chance to talk to some of the right of way and everything else goes. I think it's rushing it through, and it does not necessarily need to be done tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I speak, Scott?
Sure.
Scott? I've kind of I've kind of felt this way from when I first started reading this, that there was an issue, and I thought, boy, it'd be kind of nice if we could just pass over this and let the parties involved discuss it and hopefully come to a decision and then come to us. And the only other question I've got, I still don't see the footage on the road.
It's there.
What is it?
It says.
What do you mean you don't see the frontage on the road? It's on the plat.
It's 234.88 feet.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
So,
it's
frankly, I guess I don't know how to proceed from here. I don't know if we take. Is there a motion to table the application? And I guess we're operating in territory that I've not ever operated in. So I don't know, Sarah, if you have a thought on this? Or?
Scott, it's Chris again. I mean, my initial thought was to table it, but then you came up you pointed out very succinctly that there was really two different issues here.
Right.
So I will take my motion off and let somebody make a motion to table it. I don't think we're getting anywhere right now. Again, I think you very, definitively showed that there were two different things here, but it's obviously not going through. And again, we should just set it aside and let the parties, figure something out. I think it would be much easier to discuss it once we knew what was going on behind the scene. Simple as that.
This is Andy.
Right.
Dean. Can I make a comment?
Go on, Andy.
So the only thing I wanted to mention is I understand the neighbors have concerns, but the concerns are how the site is going to be developed, and that's not what's before the planning board tonight. It's whether or not we've met the subdivision requirements per the town of Jackson to subdivide this lot. I understand there's issues about, this question about whether or not there's septic problems, right? But that's a permitting application on the state level, right? There's also a permitting level on the town level. Those are things that will eventually have to get resolved. It doesn't mean approval of a subdivision means now we can put a septic system wherever we want, right? The easement is a deeded easement right. I understand there's concerns about how that's going to operate in the future, right? But there is a permitting process through the selectmen for the town of Jackson and with New Hampshire DOT. Those aren't before the planning board tonight. We are going to be talking with Mr. Powers because we agree with him. It's in the best interest for us to come to an agreement on how that's going to operate in the future. It doesn't necessarily mean that now we should be adding new requirements for the subdivision application process because it's not within the board purview. If we want to continue a month for dialogue, that's fine. We can do that. I just want to caution that, we have to make sure we understand what we're asking for and whether the limited requirements have been satisfied or not. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
Sure.
All right. So we have a motion. I believe we have a motion to table the application. Is that motion still on the table, so to speak?
Who made it?
I don't think we have a motion to table it. I think Chris withdrew his motion to approve it.
Well, I would like to make a motion to table it then.
Yes, I did.
All right. So do we have a second for the motion to table it?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion that points that we've not already?
Scott, may I be recognized, please?
Yes, Phil.
My question is, when you table this, what does that mean? Can I understand? Is that like a continuance, or is the process such that obviously you don't make an approval this evening, but does that mean that you're going to then continue this at a public hearing to happen next month? Then how does that work? What do people mean?
My understanding is that it would be a continuance to the next month's public hearing, and by doing so, sufficient time would have been given to the neighbors to further investigate this this proposed application.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I
All
may,
right, are we ready?
I have, is that all right? Just the reason I brought up the rather unconventional thought of a conditional approval based on condition of a civil matter, which is really what it is, was that might avoid the process of the board having to go through this at another meeting. And if basically it would be a nod that we have satisfied the remainder of the application, and should the discussions with the neighbors be resolved, the board can approve that out of session without needing to start this process all over again. So I wasn't quite sure how that would work, but that was the reason behind a conditional approval request.
Okay. I appreciate that. Irrespective of my support of continuing the application, I would prefer to continue it than to do a conditional approval on something like that. That seems too far out in the weeds. I'd rather continue the application with the hopes that all parties come to, the board in a month in agreement, as opposed to basing having a conditional approval on such an agreement. Okay. All right, are we ready to take a vote? Sarah, go on.
Well, I was just saying that Kathleen has the motion on the table to table it. Yep. Does she want to just change the language of that to change that to a continuance until the next meeting?
That's fine.
Okay. And as I said, by tabling it, that's sort of how I interpreted it in the first place. But the motion then is to continue this application to the next meeting.
That sounds good with me.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. We're ready to take a vote. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? And I'm opposed.
Okay, I'm gonna abstain because I don't want my vote tonight to have any effect on any part of this that may become before the select board. So I'd rather not have joined in.
Okay.
So I abstain.
Scott, that would mean there's only 6 voting members. Just let you know.
All right. So
No, that abstaining is an indication.
Yeah. Okay. And we still have a majority anyhow, correct?
We have a quorum, yes.
Yeah, a quorum. Okay. All right, so this public hearing is now closed. We will continue this application at the next planning board meeting, which will at another public hearing at the next planning board meeting next month. Dave, what's
okay.
on next?
If that closes the public hearing at that point, we will now move to the next agenda item is the short-term rental discussion.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, I believe I can resume my chair position. Is that correct?
Yes, because the public hearing is officially closed.
All yours.
Scott, thank you very much for handling that. I appreciate that, and I think it's a difficult situation to work through, particularly based on the fact that we got a lot of the information ourselves just in the last day or so to consider for the public hearing. But I appreciate you doing the work, and hopefully we'll get to the right answer for everyone. And that's that. So, David, if you would, please.
Okay. First of all, there was an agenda item on the short-term rental discussion before we get to review the applications, and that was a general discussion on the current application fee regarding the short-term rentals.
Barbara, would you like to give us some information? The reason this was added on is that Scott Badger and myself met with Barbara Campbell and Edith Houlihan by phone to discuss some of the short-term rental committee discussion. It's the only time I think we've heard from the committee it has directly has been that conversation. One of the things that came up, a number of things came up, and a lot of the things that came up were things either we could not address because we've been advised by council that they should not be addressed, either when we did the original activity last year or now, that we were advised that some of the things that were being requested did not fit within our ability as a planning board to allow or enable. But one of the things that did come up that we did feel was part of the zoning ordinance, that is something that we could affect or impact, was the fees charged. We set a fee charge of $50. That was based on the time there was a Jeb Bradley bill that was in the House that said that you could not exceed $50 as a fee. And we said, okay, well, we were told it was going to pass imminently. And we said, well, okay, let's use that. We did not intend to mean that it was the dollar amount that would have covered expenses or anything. We didn't pick it out of the air. We picked it because we were told, you know, if you put it over that, you're just going to have to back off of it anyways. The short-term rental committee has a number of things I think that the Board of Selectmen can work through on the affidavit and that sort of thing. But the fee itself is right in the zoning ordinance. The request was made to change the fee to at least cover the expense of processing an application, which I think is reasonable. And so I said I would bring it up for discussion this evening for us to consider. If we're going to do this, it needs to be done on a quick bell. We're going to have to do public hearings for any changes, and in order to make them available for the March vote. So bring it up, Barbara, if you'd like to present, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, well said. As far as the amount of discussions we had, there were many things that were brought up, but at the end of the day, the only thing that really did affect the ordinance versus the conditional use permit and then would have to go to public hearing was the amount of the fee. And oh my gosh, I'm sure you all know from the discussions you had how many personal inputs we had, all the way up to $1,500 for an application fee, to a sliding scale based on the size of the property, et cetera. And as an accountant, it even made my head spin. So I think that as we discussed in the last select meeting as well, that we don't want this to be a profit center, but we do want to be able to cover our costs. And I'm proposing something of a fee of anywhere between like $125 to $150 for each application, to cover the administration costs for Julie when the application, conditional use permit application comes in, the time she takes to do the research, if any other parties have to be considered, the planning board's time, et cetera, and the back and forth. So I think that's a fair amount to increase it to. We're not trying to gouge any short-term rental owners. We're trying to make it more of a covering our costs application.
Question for you. Is it possible, and this is for the board, is it possible if we assume we're going to make a change to the rate, that we could put something into the ordinance that said it's an amount to cover, to be determined by the Board of Selectmen to cover the cost, with the assumption that the current cost estimate is to be adjusted annually? Is that something that we could do so we don't have to do this every year?
I was wondering if we could do something generic like that to kind of allow the Board of Selectmen to actually set the fee instead of having it part of the ordinance. I didn't know if that was allowed or not.
What do you guys?
I think that's a Peter question.
Okay.
The fee just went up then.
I mean, I could see. Certainly, you see adjustments like that that are pegged, you know, to something other than, you know, an assessment by the Board of Selectmen. It could be pegged to, you know, the inflation index or something, you know, 4% a year, or, you know, having it be subjective annually, you know, in the sense that the Board of Selectmen come up with a I mean, you can't exactly calculate, you know, what the fee is going to be per application. And so if we're going to have an annual increase, I guess I'd be more comfortable if it were pegged to something so that I knew, you know, I'll know next year what it's going to be if I simply look up the inflation rate or do something like that.
But it is a one-time
Yeah.
fee, so it's not like something.
Oh yeah, true. You're right. It's one time.
Yeah, if I could,
But
if
still,
I could just,
but it's still, you know, if I'm a new property owner, you know, not knowing what that fee is going to be until there's been a meeting of the minds among the Board of Selectmen. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's fine. I think no matter what, it's still a question for, you know, council, but it just sounds a little loose that way. Whenever I've seen adjustments like that built in, not so much into, you know, municipal policies, but contracts, it's usually pegged to you know, some objective and, you know, researchable, you know, figure.
Barbara, you have any good?
Yeah,
good
yeah. I don't think that based on, you know, I could be totally wrong, but I think based on the experience that we've had this first year, I don't see where these costs are going to go up significantly year to year, and it is a one-time application. I can definitely see the costs that the town has to spend administering, possibly building an inventory, and other legal costs that we have by reviewing certain applications. Ordinances could go up as it compares to short-term ordinance versus noise ordinance and things like that. But those don't apply directly to the application itself. So that's where I'm trying to keep this a more simplified rate, that it's per application. If it comes down to changing maybe in the future our amount that we assess for penalties or something, that could be based differently. And we may be visiting this in a year based on, you know, to change the penalty amounts because we're seeing more violations or incorrect affidavits or things like that. But as far as the application goes, it should be a pretty standard application process. We're not doing inspections. We're not requiring inspections. We're not requiring a lot of information other than maybe a copy of the ad now to be submitted with the application. So that process should stay pretty standard. The administration of the short-term rental process as a whole, we still don't know what that total cost is. Does that kind of make sense?
The other future point is that, you know, I would hope in short order, we're going to have already processed all the applications for existing or grandfathered short-term rentals. So beyond that point, I would assume that the application flow will drop dramatically. You know, certainly there won't be any, you know, full-time short-term rental applications for residential. Barbara, what applications have we handled, if any, for part-time short-term rentals? In other words, have we had applications from someone that plans on doing short-term rentals less than 30 times a year because they're in the residential district and they haven't done it before?
I don't know that answer. I can ask Julie Hoyt on that. I know we have some that just rent during season, so they're more seasonal rentals, but I don't know if we've pegged it down to less than 30 days or anything. So, right.
Because in the future, you know, we'll have exhausted all the, you know, the existing short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. The amount of development within the commercial zone is, you know, is very limited. So I don't really see a lot of applications, even though that's where we want the applications to come from. I really don't see that there's going to be a you know, much. And so really the only ongoing stream of applications that I see would be application from people in residential that either want a short-term rent while they also occupy or full-time rent another portion of the property, or they want a short-term rent less than 30 times a year because it's a second home. And I guess I have no idea what kind of volume those applications will represent and whether we're even seeing them at all yet or not.
Right, and that's part of building the database of how many short-term rentals we even have in town, how many have applied versus how many haven't, which is, you know, I think we've approved less than 30 or around 30 out of the 100-ish that we know we have in town. So there are still quite a few to get done before we say, oh, good, we're going to have a lull now. And I don't even know how to go about finding all of those short-term rentals that haven't applied for the applications. So that's something that, as a town administration, we have to figure out.
My personal feeling is that we ought to set a deadline and say, if you're an existing short-term rental, you need to apply by whatever the date is. Otherwise, you're no longer eligible to apply for full-time short-term rental in the residential district. You're no longer grandfathered.
And we, yeah, I agree with you.
But
I also think we can run a like a Cyber Monday sale if the rate goes up and tell them they can get in under $50 before the town meeting, but we might get some uptick there. But no, seriously, I agree with you. We've been learning as we go. So we did send the letter out in, I believe, October, reminding all taxpayers that if they, and property owners, that if they did have a short-term rental, that they needed to register it. We didn't get a huge uptick from that either. So it needs to do, and we need to do another communication that says you have until January 31st. Right. And by the way, the rate is going up, or some kind of communication like that.
Yeah. And I guess my larger concern is, you know, if we approve an application, you know, someone applies to do short-term rentals, but less than 30 times a year because it's in the residential district and they've not done short-term rentals previously. How do we earmark that permit such that 5 years down the road, you know, 10 years down the road, when it's being looked at by, you know, future board or you know, town office employee, how do they know that that permit is not for unlimited short-term rentals and is only for limited short-term rentals?
Again, new things to think about and find out. How do we build our database? How do we build that database that says, I have a conditional use permit, which goes with the property? I'm learning all this too. It's a one-time application that travels with the property. So how do we designate that in our database that says this permit has been issued and granted based on these terms?
Right.
So no answer tonight.
Right. We need something that indicates that this property was, you know, did not show that they were doing short-term rentals prior to last March. Right. And therefore, if they're in residential, they're under the restrictions of the ordinance.
All good points. I agree. I don't have the answers today, but they're all challenges.
I mean, I guess my personal feeling for the fee, I'd be most comfortable with setting a straight fee. I don't think it needs to be. It sounds like, Barbara, it doesn't really need to be adjusted annually, but you know, maybe in 3 or 4 years it would need to be adjusted. And if we need to adjust it then as a board, I don't see that as too onerous. And it is a one-time fee, and so you know, if it's a couple $100, you know, given that it's for the life of the property, I don't see that as too exorbitant. But you know, we should, like you said, we shouldn't be trying to make it a profit center, but we should certainly cover what it's costing us.
Right. Like I said, I'm comfortable with like $125, $150 from what I'm actually comfortable with $150. I think that's a fair amount to cover the costs that we anticipated to cover. I said cover twice.
How do you cover the cost of monitoring that the day after somebody files an application and gives you the ad, and the day after they've added bedrooms on their ads?
And that's part of the penalty process, because we're going through that with several or a couple of the applicants. So very similar to your application tonight, we accept and approve the application based on the fact that it is filled out and completed and submitted on a basis that we're believing is actual, because an owner has submitted an affidavit, submitted and signed the affidavit. So they're submitting that they are renting their property based on this number of bedrooms per the septic plan or the tax card, but then they can go on to their Airbnb site tomorrow and open it back up to 16 people. And we are doing after the fact penalty notifications and warning letters for that. So we have the 3-step complaint process where they have a warning letter, and the second letter is a warning with a violation, and the third letter is the revocation of their application. So at this point on the conditional use permit, we're not asking them to submit a copy of their ad if they use one, but we are going to probably change that, which is a change to the permit application, but not a necessary change to the ordinance. And that's a real struggle though, Huntley, because we do have a few, like I said, that are the typical party houses, the ones that are advertising for 21 people. And they change it and send information, and then they change it back.
I think Jay said after
They get a letter
16.
from our attorney.
I think Jay said after 16 people, you need a sprinkler system.
There's a sprinkler system, and I was going to ask if any of you know this as well. Do they not qualify as an inn or a hotel, motel type of facility that has a totally different requirement if they advertise for more than 16 guests? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a
Peter question.
Jay Henry question.
Yeah, Jay and Peter. So that's the next one of the next steps we have to take for a couple of these.
Okay, if we can, I'd like to bring this back
Yeah,
to things
bring it back.
the planning board can deal with, because
Thank you.
we made a special effort when we put this together to put the onus on the Board of Selectmen to do the implementation, and also to do all the rest of the work, if you will, because they have the resources and the ability to manage the process. Our business is really around the conditional use permit itself and the process around that, which we have already passed and have on the books. Any changes we make have to be to the ordinance itself, and anything that might affect whether or not someone can apply for or not apply for a conditional use permit. The fee being one thing that's specified, therefore we have to address that if we're being requested to do so. Are there any other things that the board wishes to make a change to the short-term rental ordinance that also should be considered as part of this process? Because we're going to open up to a public hearing, and a public hearing it will address the things that we bring out, but they will also address whatever it is the individuals at the public hearing want to discuss. Is there anything else that we should be talking about now?
Did everybody look at what Conway is trying to do? If there's no septic design on record, they want to require a septic inspection. And I know you can tell the size of the tank, how many bedrooms should be on that septic system. You may not be able to tell how big the system is, the leach field itself, but you can tell by the tank and the year it was built, whatever the codes were at that point in time.
I think, Huntley, right now, the way the ordinance is written, that we say that we're going to use either the building permit or the tax card. But I believe that the Board of Selectmen has the opportunity to extrapolate and say, if I don't have either, then I need this.
The other.
Go ahead, Scott.
The other point is that, according to Peter, if I remember, the town can't require inspections based on the CUP. We would have to be doing inspections of all residential properties. We can't single out CUP, conditional use permit applications for inspections. Do you remember that too as well, Bill?
Yes, Barbara, you are muted. So if you want to say something, please unmute yourself.
Yep. Yes, Scott, we did just deal with that with Peter, and we cannot require an inspection because we don't require them for other property owners for rentals for long-term. But we did get clarification from Peter that if someone signs their affidavit that they are that they do have proper egress and proper CO2 and fire extinguishers, etc., and through proper channels, Kevin Bennett or Jay have knowledge that they are not meeting those ordinances, then we can require an inspection. So we're approving the application as signed, and then we're requiring the inspection post-application, knowing that they have answered it.
But only if an issue has been brought up to Kevin or Jay or to the Board of Selectmen.
If they have proper knowledge.
Right. So
proper knowledge, yes.
A warrant of sorts.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Anything else anybody would like to discuss? All right, can I get a motion then that we will proceed with a process for a public hearing? Well, first, I guess we have to decide whether or not we have a motion to change the ordinance or propose a change to the ordinance to increase the fee from $50 to $150 and have that brought before a public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Do I have any opposed? No opposes, so that carries. David?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
But does that mean we have to set up a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Do we have
We
time?
also have to get language.
Yep, we'll have to work
We
on the
have to
language.
get appropriate language for it, and then we have to move it forward for a public hearing. And there are dates that we have to meet. We have time right now, but it's tight.
Yes, okay.
Because we have to have two opportunities at it. We have to take two swings at the bat. The first one to propose it, then if we make any changes, we have to be able to have a second public hearing.
But only if we have changes.
But only if we have changes, but we should anticipate the opportunity.
Right. You need to have the timing, but it's not required for a second hearing.
Exactly.
But the public hearing will only be related to the change in the fee.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it won't, a lot of other things won't come up.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it would be addressing, basically what we're doing is we're putting forward a warrant article to make a change to the zoning ordinance to change the fee from $50 to $150. And we can ask for assistance from Peter on the language for that. So we get it right on the proposal. And if you want to work with me on that, we can work together, or we can
Okay.
get it squared away.
Will do. And I'll check the deadline to see when we, how fast we can get this. What's the first date we can get?
Okay, that's great.
If I could just make one final comment too, that there were so many other things brought up, as I'm sure you all know, and those are going to be continued through the subcommittee, but we're taking a bit of a different approach of how we can improve the process of the conditional use permit and how we can educate owners and renters so we can make it a more favorable experience for the residents in the town, neighbors, abutters, etc. So if anyone is interested in joining the committee for that purpose, just let me know, and I'll be working with others on that. So no.
Yeah, Barbara, I'll make one comment. That is that we did get somebody on the short-term rental committee indicating that they had already talked to the planning board, and their recommendations had been presented. And I'm not aware that, other than the conversation that you, Scott, and Edith had with me, that there was any other presentation made or other comments made as described by this individual. So I'm not sure where that came from. And hopefully what concerns they had will continue to be addressed. It's not within the purview of the zoning ordinance to address many of the things that he was describing.
Right.
And so again, I think it's going to be important for the committee and the board, the selectmen, to really work those things through.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a challenge.
It is.
So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is everyone should have received the 3 applications for today. One is the Christine Garcia location at 34 Whitney Hill Loop. The next one is McLaughlin and Odiski at 801 Carter Notch Road. And Andrew Beal and Andrew Trust at 56 Dundee Road. Those are the 3 that are up for applications right now. And everyone should have received those applications.
And if people looked at the listings, the first 2 seem to be within our regulations, but the third one was listed. The house, it has 3 bedrooms. And what they have done is to put 2 single beds up in the attic, and then in their TV room, they have 2, I couldn't tell from the picture, but something like a futon or a fold-out couch, something like that, so that they say that they can have an extra 4 people in the house. So they're saying that they have 4 bedrooms and can put up 10 people when it's only listed on the tax card as a 3-bedroom house. And there are only 3 bedrooms, plus an attic and a TV room.
So 3 bedrooms would be 8 people would be the maximum number it could be advertised for, assuming.
Right.
So.
All right. And what we've done on those is we've accepted the application with comment. And I guess the question is, should we continue to do that, or should we be looking at not accepting the application?
What does selectmen want?
Dick, you want to comment? Would you prefer that we don't accept, or how do you?
With comment is fine. When it gets to the select board, if they have to change their advertising, we do not approve the application. So there is that check it really helps for you to put the comments down for that application because it makes it a quicker process. But I don't think you have to deny the application at this point. You can pass it on with your comments, and I think that'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
And that was the, Sarah, that was the third one? Sarah, that
Yes,
was Dundee Road?
that's the Beal one.
Okay.
Sally Beal's old house.
Scott, you had something?
I was going to ask is as far as the conditional use permit process, what is our role, you know, in that process? Do we simply, you know, just in general, do we simply make comment? Should we be accepting or denying? You know, who's responsible for accepting and denying an application in the end? I guess is because I don't think it would be set up so that, you know, we could approve or accept an application and the Board of Selectmen could deny it. We wouldn't want to have that sort of situation. So whose responsibility is it to
my understanding? Yeah, my understanding, Scott, is that our process, our role on the permit process is to review the application and to see whether or not the elements of the application have been met. I.e., did they submit a fee? Did they sign an affidavit and has it been notarized? Did they agree to the parts of the application and fill out the application appropriately? That is something that Julie Hoyt reviews and refers to us and identifies whether or not the application is properly met. In fact, it doesn't really give them to us unless it has been met. So we don't really see anything unless basically the check boxes are all done. Right. So our process, if we are aware, for example, Huntley knows something bad's happened, or we know of something that's gone on, it should be our responsibility, if we're aware of something, to identify it as comment. As for example, the advertisement not being appropriate.
Right.
But it's not our responsibility to investigate or to do additional work.
Right, but I guess my question is, you know, using this application as an example, we presented with the application, there's evidence that it's not meeting our requirements. But is it our role to then accept or deny that application, or do we simply pass it back to the Board of Selectmen with a recommendation?
Sounds like it's the latter that was what Dick was saying.
Right.
It's up to the selectmen to accept it or not.
Right, because I think what I'm trying to be careful of is that, you know, that we don't end up going on record where one board has approved or accepted an application and another board has denied the application. I think the final approval should be up to one board or the other, and the other board simply presents a recommendation towards that final approval or denial.
We have to use the word accept and approve, and we do not approve. We only accept an application, and that is strictly a. I'm not sure I know the right administrative role almost. We are just the same way when we take a look at an application before us, like we did tonight. Do we accept the application for a subdivision, and do we approve? We have two parts of that process. We only own one part of the process for the CUP, and that's the acceptance of the application. The approval belongs to the Board of Selectmen, and they are the only organization that can approve. We have no right to do anything with that.
Right. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're not going on record in any way as approving the application, especially if it's an application that is deficient in some fashion.
If the application is deficient, i.e. they didn't pay a fee, they didn't have an affidavit, they didn't complete everything that's on the affidavit correctly, in other words, they leave something blank.
Yeah.
That would be something that would not be acceptable.
Then you would not accept it, but you still haven't gotten into the approval process because the selectmen are the only ones with any powers. You don't have any enforcement powers at the planning board level. So it is just that fine line between accept and approve. But you can do your homework and help and point out defects, but it's the selectmen that'll approve it in the end.
And I love that separation. Truly, it's a good separation. Makes sense. It puts the power where it belongs.
Okay. And that's clearly in the ordinance. It's 4.4.3.4 that we don't have that authority.
Okay. So I propose that we go through these applications individually tonight, since it's only 3 of them, and it sounds like we'll have a different response to the third one.
Okay.
David?
Yep, I can pull them up. I have them up. Okay, so let me share. Okay, so this is
The second one.
the second one, the one at 801. So here's the application, signed, dated up here, notary, and again. That's what we will fill out and send to them tomorrow. And here is the tax. Oh, if you want to know if it was paid, here it is right here. Check 57. She writes that down. $50 fee. And here is the tax card for the building permit. And I will rotate that. Okay, I will rotate that. Let me see how I do that. This is the new version of Acrobat, so it has a new rules. I don't know where that is. It used to be right here. Can make it a little larger, but I can't. I'm sorry, I don't seem to see how I can turn it sideways.
Try the view menu, David. That might give you a rotate option.
Oh, got it. It's up here now. Okay. One more time. Okay, so now I need to shrink it back to normal. Okay, so here it is.
Sideways.
You can see it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
How can you see it's 3 bedrooms?
3 bedrooms. 2 baths.
Okay, yeah, right here, 3 bedroom. And that's what they advertised for. Okay, any questions? I'll switch to the Beal one. That is the third. That's the third one on the list, and that was the one that we had some questions on. That when they see the application. So again, it was paid.
Scott, did I understand you that you wanted to vote on each one separately going through?
Well, I mean, in what we've already heard about the Beal application, it sounds like we would be accepting it, you know, with a recommendation that the Board of Selectmen consider the, you know, the number of people that's being advertised for. So that'd be different than simply accepting the other applications if that's what we were doing with the other applications. It sounded like we were going to be handling one of the applications slightly differently than the others.
All right, so you basically would like us to vote on each one separately then?
I guess I was just suggesting at least that we vote on the Beal application separately because there are particular issues involved there. I haven't heard of any other issues with the other two applications, so we could vote on them together if there are no issues that we're aware of.
Okay, so can I get a motion then to vote on the acceptance of the applications for the first two properties? Please identify them, David.
It would be the Garcia on Whitney and the McLaughlin on Carter Notch Road.
Do I hear a motion?
So
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on those two applications? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, it's unanimous. Do I hear a motion to accept the Beal application with conditions?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, does the motion have to be accept with conditions or with comments, or do we have a motion then talk about it?
Really, they're all accepted with comments, even if your comment is, we couldn't find anything wrong.
Right.
They all have a comment with them. So again, I think you're just accepting that they paid their fee, they had it notarized, they've gone through their checklist, and then you make your comments.
Right.
Okay, so do I get a motion to accept? I heard a motion to accept. And second?
Second. I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, before we vote on whether to, because don't we need to identify the comments that we're going to attach?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. But we have. But go ahead.
Yeah, we have the comment in the document that you said. Julie has pointed that out, and I'll pull this up. It does point out the fact that, as you can see here, the building tax says 3, and when you look at the website, and if you go to the website, they advertise they have 5 bedrooms and sleeps 10.
Right.
So this comment here will be on the comment of their application when it is submitted to the Board of Selectmen.
And Sarah also mentioned that they were using an attic as a bedroom. Is there any concern about egress, et cetera, for that?
That would definitely be an egress situation because you have one stairwell and they would need an egress window to get out of that upper floor.
But do we know that they don't have an egress? They can advertise it.
And that's my question. Do we know that that's a concern or not?
No, we don't until there's a problem, and then there's an inspection because there was a problem or somebody complained, and that's why as we go down the line, a checklist for any renter, anybody coming in can go through this list and say, oh, I have to kind of look around for the safety devices that should be in place. If they're not there, then they can let the town know. The whole enforcement process is, changing every day. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to do it, and we talk to Peter Malia pretty regularly on what we can do. So, yeah, it's something to look at, and it may be something that we can question before we approve it. I don't know if we can question Mr. Beal and say, look, you've signed this affidavit. Do you really have an egress window out of the upper bedroom? So I don't know, but we can't without an inspection, and we're not supposed to inspect. If the building inspector has been there for some other reason in the past and knows there was no window, then, we can deal with that.
I wasn't suggesting that there was a concern. It's just, anytime that you're putting bedrooms in an attic, it would be rare that you'd find a house that had a proper egress already in place for a situation like that down the road. And so to me, that's a bit of a red flag, just because, unless that egress was added, more recently, it seems unlikely that it would have been there as part of the original construction.
So Dick, when you get the applications back from the planning board and we have comments on it, then is that something that you then talk with the applicant about and saying, hey, these issues we've been alerted to, and you need to correct them before we can accept your application? Is that what happens?
So far, what we've done, if the advertisement is incorrect, in other words, we know from their tax card or a septic plan that they don't have the ability to have as many people as they're advertising for, we reject the application. We've had one where we knew, because the building inspector had been there for other reasons, that there was no egress. So we talked to them. Some of the condominiums at Wentworth, it was obvious they didn't have egress windows, and they are dealing with it. They've got I think 3 of the applications from Wentworth are waiting until the work is complete. It's one thing for them to say, yes, we've contacted Granite State Glass and they're going to come in and put in an egress window. And we go, okay, let us know when that is complete. So we haven't called them, but we've written letters. Actually, we had one operator that was at our meeting, and it was really beneficial because you could talk directly to her, explain what the situations were and where the smoke detectors were supposed to be and where a CO2 detector is supposed to be, and it was really a positive experience. I wish all the applications could be like that, but anyway, that was, I thought, very successful. And yeah, that's why I say it's an ongoing process. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to keep people safe and make these houses safe for, incoming guests. So yeah, we'll do our best.
Okay. David, can you get us back to the grid then, please?
Okay, sure. So if you like, I could add, this comment will be there. I also will add to the comments that they advertise in the attic, just for you to remember, Dick, that's came from this one too. So you can deal with both of those issues when we add our comments to this particular application.
That's great.
Okay, I think I still have outstanding a vote to accept this application. Do we have a motion then to accept?
Yes, I think we do.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was seconded.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? None opposed. Okay. I think we've made our way through.
Yes.
That was a great discussion, by the way. Thank you.
There's nothing else on the agenda unless you want to bring up the item you sent us out earlier today, Bill.
Okay, and that was, remind me, please.
The Saco River Survey.
Okay, thank you.
Water treatment thing.
Yeah, we received a survey. I know it was sent both to the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. I think it should have been sent to the Conservation Commission. I guess my question is whether or not, I mean, we've had a presentation similarly, but it was like a year and a half ago. Do we want to just respond to it saying that, we'd love to hear from you, but not in January, maybe some push off to some other date? Or Dick, is there some better way we can respond as a community that would make more sense relative to having them come out and talk to us?
I don't know. I've talked to the selectman from Hart's Location that's helping to push this along. I think that it's important. I think they're looking for support from the various communities. So I think it's, to respond and to say, yeah, we're interested. We'll try to get on board with you, and we certainly will listen to any presentation you might have. I agree that we should put it off until a little better timing for us.
Yeah. Is there some way can we do that on a coordinated basis, as opposed to me responding, you responding, kind of thing, and say that we're interested, but if we can do it sometime later in the season, that would be good.
Yeah, I think that a point person is always good for something like that, because they can kind of bring the information back and disseminate it to the board. So,
do you want us to pick up on that, or you want to do that with the Conservation Commission, or how do you think is the best way to do it?
I brought it up to the Conservation Commission Monday night, and they're already involved. They're, Jeff Sires is definitely involved with it and pretty enthusiastic. So, he's a good point person right there.
Can we then ask that he coordinate for the various boards then to get a presentation?
I think that'd be wonderful.
All right. I'll respond back to the folks and say that that's what the planning board expects to do, and we understand that that's what the Board of Selectmen is going to do. And if you want to follow up, that's great. I'll copy you in.
Well,
all right. Thank you.
Okay, that is the last agenda item.
Anybody got anything else? I see a hat. I know we've gone past our time. I apologize. But there was a certain area I couldn't control.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, good. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
At all.